Over the weekend, I saw The Lighthouse, and now I'm pissed. Not about the movie, mind you. The movie was brilliant. Funny, weird, scary, photographed in gorgeous black and white, featuring amazing performances by Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe, but especially Dafoe, and confident, stylish direction from Robert Eggers, who also co-wrote the screenplay, and who, in 2015, also wrote and directed The Witch, which was also excellent. No, I'm pissed because this movie, which I reiterate is absolutely fantastic in every way, was nominated in exactly one category in this year's Academy Awards, which will be handed out in a few weeks. The one category in which it was nominated is Best Cinematography, which it very much deserves. The cinematography is stunning. But the cinematography is hardly the only aspect of the film that deserves recognition. The Lighthouse is a two-character play, and both actors who play those characters deserve at least nominations for their work, and one of them, that'd be Dafoe, deserves to take that little golden naked man home. In The Lighthouse, Dafoe plays Thomas Wake, a cranky and superstitious old man who was once a sailor but was forced to retire following a leg injury and now carries on his romance with the sea as a wickie, a lighthouse keeper. Or at least he says he was once a sailor. The personal histories of Thomas and his new assistant Ephraim Winslow, played by Robert Pattinson, are repeatedly thrown into question since our only sources are Thomas and Winslow themselves, and both men are shown to be unreliable narrators at various points. The facts of each man's life are further muddied by the possible presence of supernatural elements on their craggy, storm-swept island, including gulls that may or may not be the reincarnations of dead sailors, a sea monster that may or may not live atop the lighthouse, and mythical creatures that may or may not dwell in the turbulent waters surrounding the island. Oh, and there's also the matter of the murder or murders one or both of our characters may or may not have recently committed. There's a lot going on in the movie. And did I mention it's a comedy? Because it is, kinda. It's several things at once. It's a bold blend of dark comedy and horror and mystery and mythology and Coleridge and silent film. In the credits, Eggers also acknowledges taking inspiration from the work of Sarah Orne Jewett, a 19th century writer from Maine who was celebrated for her talent for capturing local dialects. The debt Eggers owes to Jewett is most apparent in the dialogue of Thomas, which, in the mouth of Willem Dafoe, takes on the character of the oration of a deranged prophet. As Thomas, Dafoe has several memorable monologues, all directed at Winslow following some offense, actual or imagined. The best of these takes place in their shared sleeping quarters when Winslow, drunk and bitter after a month on the island, insults Thomas's cooking. Initially, Thomas seems genuinely wounded. He begs Winslow to at least admit to enjoying his lobster. When Winslow refuses, Thomas's hurt turns to rage. He rises to his feet and, invoking Triton, calls upon the sea god to obliterate Winslow, describing in endless, lurid detail how Winslow will be choked, bloated, and burst by his mighty trident. It is biblical, pagan frame of reference aside, and a wonderful, theatrical, heedless, gripping bit of acting from Dafoe. Personally, I don't see how anyone can watch that scene and not immediately want to just mail him the Oscar. It's apparently not the opinion of a majority of the actors branch of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, but what the hell do I know? I didn't see all the eligible films last year. Maybe the 5 nominees for Best Supporting Actor, which is the category where Dafoe's turn in The Lighthouse fits best, I think, between the two of them. If you have to pick a single lead, it's Pattinson. Maybe the 5 Best Supporting Actor nominees are genuinely better than Dafoe. I haven't seen A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. I'm sure Tom Hanks is a terrific Mr. Rogers, but come on! Do you realize Willem Dafoe has never won an Oscar? A brilliant, 40-year career in film, one of the most consistent and indelible performers of his generation, the highlight of damn near every movie he's ever made. Never won an Oscar, not for Platoon, not for The Last Temptation of Christ, not for Mississippi Burning, not for Autofocus, not for Antichrist, not for Shadow of the Vampire, not for The Florida Project, not for anything! No Best Actor! No Best Supporting Actor, even, which is especially galling because the Best Supporting Actor and Actress categories have historically been the make-good awards. If an actor has had a long, successful career, given good performances in popular films, but never won an Oscar, they might win one for Best Supporting in a year when maybe they didn't have the best performance exactly, but they were pretty good, and hey, come on. They deserve an Oscar. It's why Sean Connery won Best Supporting Actor for The Untouchables. It's why Jack Palance won for City Slickers. I mean, come on. It's why Christopher Plummer won for Beginners. That's right, Christopher Plummer has an Oscar, but it's not for The Sound of Music. It's not for The Insider. He wasn't even nominated for The Insider. It's for Beginners. Remember Beginners? It was all right. But Plummer didn't win for Beginners, not really. He won for being Christopher Plummer. It was an unofficial Lifetime Achievement Award. Of course, sometimes it's not. Some years the Best Supporting Actor or Actress Oscar goes to someone who didn't give the best performance of the year, but it's one of those years where they can't really decide who to give it to, so they give it to the most popular or likable nominee, like a People's Choice Award, only it means something. That's the reason Walter Brennan has 3 Oscars. I'll say that again. Walter Brennan has 3 Oscars. Nothing against Walter Brennan. He was a fine actor. I love him as Old Man Clanton in My Darling Clementine, for which he wasn't nominated for an Oscar. But does Walter Brennan deserve 3 Oscars when Willem Dafoe has not won? No! Walter Brennan does not deserve 3 Oscars when Willem Dafoe has not won. I don't think Willem Dafoe would ever do this because he's a class act, but if Willem Dafoe burglarized the home of one of Walter Brennan's grandkids and stole one of those Best Supporting Actor Oscars, maybe the one he won for Kentucky, because really, what the hell is the difference? I'd say good. Let Willem Dafoe have the Best Supporting Actor Oscar Walter Brennan won for Kentucky. Willem Dafoe deserves it. And on second thought, Walter Brennan was a right-winger and a racist, so forget what I just said about nothing against Walter Brennan. Piss on Walter Brennan. Look, this video isn't about 3-time Oscar winner Walter Brennan or the fact that he was a member of the John Birch Society and was known to use the N-word on set and reportedly was visibly delighted when he learned of the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. Yes, Brennan was an asshole, and yes, his Oscars should be posthumously stripped and redistributed to more deserving actors, one of whom should be Willem Dafoe, but that's not why I'm making this video. I'm making this video to say that The Lighthouse is a great movie, and it's a travesty that it wasn't recognized as such this year by the film industry's most prestigious awards. Not as much of a travesty as gleeful bigot Walter Brennan continuing to enjoy a celebrated artistic legacy decades after his death, but a travesty nonetheless. Because, look, I know the Oscars are bullshit, obviously, but the Oscars are also Hollywood's way of honoring those members of its community that it deems worthy of being honored. And even though the awards are bullshit, I, as a lifelong movie lover, can't help but get a little upset when I see a movie as brilliant as The Lighthouse and an actor who is as much of a goddamn genius as Willem Dafoe get passed over while other, lesser films collect the accolades. Up to 10 films can be nominated for Best Picture. This year, only 9 were. Are you seriously telling me The Lighthouse didn't get enough votes to sneak in there at number 10? To hell with that, look at some of the films that were nominated. The Irishman? Joker? I'm not going to be some hipster contrarian and try to argue that these weren't good films because they both were. But that's all they were. Good films. The Irishman is an hour and a half too long and doesn't really get interesting until Al Pacino shows up. Joker is a solid movie that made a ton of money and has been grossly overrated by its most ardent admirers who treat it like some kind of revolutionary masterpiece when it's actually a skillfully executed pastiche of Scorsese and Friedkin, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that's what it is. Joaquin Phoenix is probably going to win Best Actor for it, and that's fine. I'm never one to begrudge Joaquin Phoenix an Oscar. He's great, a Dafoe-esque talent, I dare say. But if they wanted to give him Best Actor, they should have given it to him last year when he actually deserved it for You Were Never Really Here. Not even nominated, by the way. Knives Out and Blinded by the Light were both better than either The Irishman or Joker 2, and neither of them were nominated for Best Picture this year either. But again, this isn't about them, okay? This is about The Lighthouse. God damn it. And Willem Dafoe. And why didn't he win for Platoon, by the way? He was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Platoon won Best Picture that year. And Best Director. Why not Best Supporting Actor? Was Michael Caine in Hannah and Her Sisters really that much better than fucking Dafoe as Sergeant Elias? I don't think so. All due respect to Michael Caine, who is a legend, and to Hannah and Her Sisters, easily one of the greatest films ever directed by a pedophile, but I don't think so. You blew it back then, actors branch of the Academy. You blew it back then, and you blew it this year by snubbing The Lighthouse and snubbing Dafoe. This could have been the year you made good. You could have given Dafoe the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for The Lighthouse, and he would have deserved it for the performance and for his whole career of great performances. But no, you didn't do that, did you? So now you're going to have to make good in a few years when Dafoe plays, I don't know, an aging photographer who discovers he has macular degeneration in some half-ass Oscar bait dramedy with a title like Shrinking Aperture, directed by a middle-brow hack like Ron Howard or Brian Helgeland, and he'll win Best Supporting Actor for that. Not Best Actor, because the film won't actually be about his character. It'll be about his dull-ass son, who'll be played by, I don't know, Josh Duhamel. It won't matter. And everyone will know that he's not actually winning for Edge Transfer or whatever the hell I said it was called, but for all the shit he should have won for these past 4 decades, but didn't. And I'll be watching at home, too indignant and resentful over the injustice of it all to even enjoy the sight of one of my favorite actors accepting his long overdue Academy Award, yelling at the TV like, was that so hard? You contemptible bastards, you tasteless, shameless, amoral, lily-livered, bandwagon-riding, culture-smothering, art-destroying, predator-sheltering, dollar-chasing fucking pimps! Was that really so hard? All right, have it your way. Give it to Hanks this year. I'm sure his acceptance speech will be lovely.